Anime has been a huge part of my life ever since I started watching it, and it's got me through 2020, so I owe it a lot for that. But anime isn't just cheap entertainment to me, or at least it isn't most of the time. I've watched anime that I can only describe as world changing, anime that have changed me forever, and that is not an experience that comes along very often, and I'm making this video to treasure my personal favourites. I wholeheartedly recommend every entry on this list, but that doesn't mean each one is for everyone, because that couldn't be further from the truth. Almost every one of these push the boundary in some way, and that's why when they succeed, they are much more memorable. Okay, let's go. Okay, starting off at number 10, and I'm already going to lose most of you. Is Black Clover the best show? No. Is Black Clover the best shonen? No. It's not even messed on this list. But would I feel horrible if I didn't put it on? Definitely. Black Clover inspired me to make my AniTube debut, if you will. And if you watch that video, you'll know that I think Black Clover's characters are amazing, and I stand by that. The Black Balls are my favourite ensemble cast. I can feel genuinely at home with them, and that is the main reason it makes this list, so check out that video if you want a more detailed analysis. But other than that, anyone can appreciate two things about Black Clover, as they are unarguably brilliant, and those are its openings and its climactic fight scenes. If you take one thing from this, I'd like you to go and listen to all the Black Clover openings, if not to watch the whole show. Every one of them is great, and except for number 6 on this list, they are the best. And the fight scenes are so good, they should be classed as their own category of porn. I could easily do a top 10 Black Clover fight scenes, and wait, I actually should do that. Right, now number 9, and this is where I lose even more people. After putting Black Clover in my top 10, I'm sure you're expecting this list to be purely shonen. Bet you weren't expecting this. Monogatari, and as I haven't completed it, I'm only referring to Baka Monogatari, the Kisa Monogatari films, Nisa Monogatari, and Neko Monogatari, as well as a little bit of second series. Monogatari is a very hard show to recommend to someone, as it's hard to understand the appeal until experience it yourself. And no, I'm not talking about the ecchi. If you come to Monogatari in hopes of a simple ecchi show, it will have you steaming from the head in minutes with its breakneck dialogue. Monogatari's dialogue is far and away the best I have experienced from this medium, and you'll need to constantly rewind and reread the subs to even hope to comprehend what any one of the memorable cast of characters is implying, and even then, you're likely still missing something. And all this is forgetting how Monogatari is one of the funniest anime out there, and one of the best animated. Number 8 on my list is a brilliant anime that I watched eons ago now, but still dominates a large part of my mind. Black Lagoon is a masterpiece that really delves into the mind of criminals and what makes one, all wrapped in an action comedy romp rivaling anything Western. Being animated by the legendary Madhouse, you can rest assured that the more intense scenes look world class, and the show is basically just one whole intense scene. If I had to pick one thing that makes Black Lagoon an easy pick for a top 10, it's its characters. Rock, Revi, Dutch, Benny, Balalaika, Roberta, all of these characters and many more are what make this show real, relentless and memorable, and fill a world that I couldn't forget even if I wanted to. If you haven't seen this show, you're really doing something wrong. If this isn't somewhere on your anime list, you're genuinely missing out, and I think it's a show that you should experience before you die, because it can really affect you in a way very few shows could even hope to. Moving on to number 7, you might get whiplash from the genre change, but in this place, I have my favourite romance story of all time. Spice and Wolf tells the tale of a travelling salesman who, in one stop to a nearby village, comes across none other than the goddess of the harvest herself, the wise wolf Holo. And from that moment on, we watch the two travel together, forming a believable and unshakable bond with each other, also known as falling in love. I said Monogatari had the best dialogue, but Spice Wolf trumps that with the immense chemistry that the two leads have with each other that makes every conversation thrilling and heartwarming. Now, I mentioned that the wise wolf Holo, right? Well, for the uninformed, she is the gold standard for what we weebs call a waifu, and is certainly my go-to. She blows the majority of other characters out of the water purely with her immense charisma, But somehow, at the same time as creating a perfect romance as this show does, it balances the harrowing tragedy that is the fact that their relationship can't and won't last forever. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what could possibly top the masterworks that filled the prior places. Well, it's kind of hard to explain. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is an experience you can't find anywhere else and is one that will never be rivaled. JoJo's tells the story of the Joestar lineage and their eternal struggle against all the evil that the world has to offer, is one way of describing it. Another is one man from the 1800s punches a flamboyant vampire so hard he sleeps 100 years, whilst his grandson shoots up a different vampire with a Tommy gun and then fights three ancient angry statues using the completely typical weapon known as a volcano. And that's just the first two parts. JoJo's doesn't fall into a genre, so it creates a new one, and it does this on a regular basis. JoJo's is hilarious, JoJo's is insane, but most of all, JoJo's is bizarre, and that's why it has one of the most dedicated fan bases on the planet, and after watching it, it's easy to see why. Side note, if you remember earlier, I said number 6 was the only anime that had better openings than Black Clover, so check them out. Now, let's get into my top 5 anime of all time. Number 5 is Code Geass, Lelouch of the Rebellion. Code Geass is typically remembered as that show you watch if you liked Death Note. But, if you want to know why Code Geass is here and not Death Note, then look no further than their endings. Avoiding spoilers, Code Geass's ending makes any other look like a cop-out, and it's a dictionary definition of how to end a story, and I wish more anime were like it. Code Geass also has much more to offer past this ending. For instance, one of the best anime protagonists in the titular Lelouch, or his full name, Lelouch Lamperouge v Britannia, who, after holding a grudge for over a decade, one day decides to single-handedly bring a world power to its knees. Code Geass is one of the most rewarding shows I've ever watched, as we get to see every meticulously planned step in a scheme that puts Light Yagami to shame. If all that isn't enough to get you to watch it, there are also awe-inspiring mech battles in every other episode, and more developed characters than you could use a Geass to accidentally murder. Just missing out on the top 3 is the currently unfolding masterpiece that everyone and their pet titan has heard of. If that crappy joke didn't tip you off, I'm obviously talking about Attack on Titan. Out of all of these shows, this is the one that I'm struggling to write about, because I've already heard in detail why others love this show, and I'm not sure what there is left for me to say, but I'll give it a go. Attack on Titan, out of all the anime on this list, and the entire medium, is the anime with the most cohesive and enthralling story I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. Any complaint or plot hole you may have at one point will be entirely fixed and built upon so much later that you'll forget what your problem was to begin with. From Season 1 to the airing Season 4, Attack on Titan is completely unrecognizable, and it changed in all the best ways. The best way to describe Attack on Titan is jaw-dropping, as there isn't an episode where you won't be shocked by a twist or enamored by the perfect animation and choreography of the action scenes. I think Attack on Titan is the only anime that everyone who gives it a chance will enjoy, because it's an incredible story backed by a world-class production by Wit Studio and now MAPPA. I said a similar thing about Attack on Titan, but this next entry is on so many people's top lists, I shouldn't even have to talk about it, because obviously it's going to be one of my favourites. Number 3 is the masterwork of fiction and storytelling known as Fullmetal Alchemist, and of course the subsequent series Brotherhood. I'm not usually one to gatekeep, but if you haven't seen FMAB, are you really an anime fan? As well as numbers 1 and 2 on this list, FMAB is the only other show I would give a perfect 10 out of 10 to. If you're one of those few fake fans who have somehow not seen this magnum opus, the paragon of film and TV, it's about two brothers who are masters of a somewhat fictional science called alchemy and are on a quest to regain something that they lost and meet all sorts of people along the way. Overall, if you watch the series correctly, there are zero actual faults with this story, in my opinion at least. And even though it was one of the first anime I ever watched, its brilliance is still not lost on me. Within its episode count, FMAP contains some of the most haunting moments that will stick with you forever, as well as some of the happiest and most wholesome anime has to offer. And if you are a fan of storytelling, you are doing yourself a disservice by sleeping on this show. My second favourite anime of all time is a sci-fi thriller comedy romance show that I love with my whole heart. Steins Gate is without a doubt the closest thing I've experienced to cinematic perfection. With Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, there are several things I could nitpick if I was so inclined. I know I said it had zero faults, please let my poor script writing slide. But Steins Gate has nothing of the sort, only brilliance. Starting out as a fun, comfy anime where multiple stupid certified geniuses mess around with a banana in a microwave and then accidentally irreversibly damage the space-time continuum, Steins Gate becomes the most thrilling 24 episodes you will ever watch. If you want to see what the upper echelon of anime looks like, I beg you to watch Steins Gate, and I promise you won't be disappointed. I said earlier that the Black Balls were the group of people I felt most at home with. Well, if the Black Balls are my home, I want the future Gadget Laboratory to be my friends. One more thing, if Hola won't be my waifu, I will happily take Makase instead. Hacking to the gate. Okay. My favourite anime. Let me preface this by reminding you that I truly adore each and every one of these shows I said prior, but there was honestly no contest for number one. Hunter x Hunter tries its hand at about every sort of narrative in the 148 episodes that currently exist, and it does all of them better than anything else. Hunter x Hunter is the apex of shonen because of things like how there isn't a single filler episode, which is immensely refreshing, but comparing it to typical shonen is itself an insult to Hunter x Hunter because it exists in a plane beyond those. Hunter x Hunter is one of those special properties that only comes around once in a while, where instead of creating a story, the writer decides to make an entire world that feels like it has and will contain infinite other stories entirely separate to the one that we are presented with. And the story that we are presented with is captivating from start to finish. It contains so many characters that receive more development in a few scenes than most do in their entire show. Because of this vast cast of intriguing characters, something people often say about the show is that it has no true protagonist, which is something I agree with, as even though Gon and Killua are the vessels through which we experience a story, any one of the supporting characters feels like they are having their own anime coinciding with the one that we are watching, and we only get snippets from them. Some of the best and most memorable characters from this show are its villains, of which Hunter x Hunter has the best. From Miriam to Pariston and the Phantom Troop to Lord Hisoka, each one of them is worthy of getting their own 100-episode show, and each has a fascinating psychology which makes every scene they're in gripping and intense. Hunter x Hunter has fights, but more so than any other show, they feel much more like clashes of wills than fists. Each new fight brings something new to the table, and the winner and loser both learn something from it. But even said that doesn't mean that they are not brilliantly animated and choreographed and endlessly entertaining to watch. I just realized I've typed almost half a page just on Hunter x Hunter because there is so much to mention, and I really want to get across how fantastic of a series it is, and I hope my passion got across. I don't know if anyone other than a few friends and family are watching this, but if you are, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I already have a few more video ideas in mind, but this takes a surprising amount of effort and time, so don't expect anything quick. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.